You're listening to the Inspired Entrepreneur's Guide podcast, episode 25.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Inspired Entrepreneur's Guide podcast. I'm your host, Darlene Victoria, and this month we are talking about e-commerce, including tips and tricks for starting your online business. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about creating a lifestyle of your dreams, one in which you can work your business but still have some time to play and travel. To chat about these two topics is someone that has over 10 years of experience in the e-commerce world. She's the founder of e-commerce Backstage Pass and assists clients with building a sustainable online business, helping them gain the highest return on investment for their business by focusing on a very specific, well-rounded strategy. She's been featured on Fox TV, in Vogue magazine, on NBC, just to name a few, and speaks internationally about using her best strategies for online business success. In addition, she has a passion for sharing what she knows because she's done it herself about creating a dream lifestyle with your own business. Please welcome my guest, Caroline Balinska. Caroline, welcome to the show.
Hi, Darlene. Thank you for having me.
You are very welcome. I'm excited to chat about these two topics with you today.
Fantastic, yes.
Awesome.
I'm not sure if I told you, but I just came back from a cruise across the Atlantic, so that was very interesting for my entrepreneur business.
Yes, well, let's chat about that. So, first, tell me, what was that like? I have a few questions, but I would love to know from your experience what that was like on a cruise, no less, working your business and being out there on the cruise. I know you had some internet difficulties, so share.
I think that was the hardest thing for me. Before I left, it was called the Nomad Cruise, and it was this time around 200 entrepreneurs on a cruise. A lot of these people are nomads. There was quite a few of us that, like myself, I do travel quite a lot, so I do work from different locations. So everyone is location independent, some more than others. And we were on this cruise. They'd run one before just a few months ago, and it went really well, and I heard there was internet, so I was really excited. And I got on this cruise, and they weren't expecting so many of us using the internet, so the internet did not work. So I think I got probably 15 minutes a day of internet, and that was usually somewhere between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m., which wasn't really great for my business. So that became really frustrating, and I think being an entrepreneur for more than 17 years, I had to just let go and say, you know what, there's nothing I can do right now. I could drive myself insane and get upset, but I just had to say, sometimes these things happen. In saying that, I wouldn't do that cruise again for that reason, but I networked, I made the most of my networking and definitely met a lot of amazing people on that cruise.
Right. And since it was an entrepreneurial type of cruise, you were able to maybe that was a blessing in disguise, because if you had better internet, you might not have made as many networking connections. So you can kind of look at it that way, I guess.
Exactly. And I think that's it. Horses for courses. What happens, I can't say what would have happened any other way. I made things work. I had to put off a few things in my business. They get delayed, but these things happen. It could have happened for other circumstances. That's what it is being an entrepreneur, and I think that's what I teach. I've been a business coach for many, many years, and that's what I teach people is you can never expect what's going to happen. If you have a 9-to-5 job, you know you're going to get paid every week on the day, and you know that you're going to work 9-to-5. As an entrepreneur, this is part of being an entrepreneur.
Right. Absolutely. Well, let's talk about being an entrepreneur and how you actually got into the entire space. First, how did you get into e-commerce? And then we can talk about how you grew your business from there.
Well, I started off doing marketing back in my 20s. I had a hairdressing salon in Melbourne in my early 20s, and realized that marketing was so important that I realized at a very early age that no matter what you have as your service or your product, if you can't market it, you don't have a business. So I went off and I studied marketing, And fast forward probably 6 years, I started my own shoe label. So I started a shoe label in Australia. It was for large size ladies' shoes. So I was doing sizes 40 to 44, and I had to find somewhere to sell them. So I started selling them online, and that was at the beginning of e-commerce. So I'm talking, my brother was a web developer at the time, and he built me a website and helped me sell from the website. It is nothing like it is now. Now you can throw something together in a couple of hours. Back then it really was, how do we get payment? It was such a big deal of trying to work out how to get something. There was no such thing as the PayPal button or getting Stripe or something like that. It was a different world back then. So that's when I started. That's how I got into e-commerce. And then I moved on from there and started doing marketing for another one of my businesses. And then people started to come to me and ask me for help in their businesses. And fast forward 10 years, and I've been working in many different businesses and many e-commerce stores.
And do you hone in on that whole marketing process? It sounds like it. Is that like your specialty area, or I should say, is that the area that you are the most passionate about, or are there other areas?
When it comes to the way my business stands at this moment, I do a program, and it's to help e-commerce store owners get from 4 or 5 figures up to that 6-7 figure business. And inside that, we talk about marketing, whether it be PR, whether it be how to get more leads. And that's really where most people fail, because they have a beautiful product, they have a beautiful idea, but they don't have a way of actually getting new clients. So that is my passion. But when it comes to my coaching, I do help people. I have manufactured in China. I have done the shipping besides drop shipping. I do know how to, get products around the world. So I can work in all of those areas, but really my passion lays in that marketing area.
Awesome. Well, business coaching, I want to kind of step towards that area. And it's, we touched on it at the top of our conversation about going on a cruise, and people are probably thinking, gosh, how can I ever do that and run my business? So what steps did you take to get to that point, to create your dream lifestyle?
Yeah, this is a funny one. In Australia, I was very, very successful in my 20s. I had my own apartment. I had multiple businesses. I was living the dream. I had absolutely everything you could dream of. And I was sitting there thinking, this is not what I want. And my partner at the time, he was traveling a lot for work, where he was off overseas for 6 months of the year. And I could have gone with him. He was always like, come with me. I'll pay for everything. You can come. But I couldn't leave my business behind, because I was always stuck in my businesses. Then, and it was that stage that I realized that's not the life I wanted. As much as I had the success around me, that's why I'm such a believer that success is not what is in this box that everyone thinks it is. Success is what you personally want. Every single person wants something different from success. Mine is travel. Someone else's might be to spend more time with their kids. Someone else's might be to buy multiple homes. So we all have our own thing, and I think we need to follow our own dreams. And mine was to travel. So I had an opportunity, and because I always said I was going to move to Europe, but I always had my businesses. And 3 years ago, I was in Europe, met a guy, decided that I was going to leave everything behind. I went back to Australia and sold all my businesses and sold everything. And I had just bought a new car. It was 2 weeks old at that stage. And it was straight, brand new from the shop. And my girlfriends, a few of my girlfriends who, they are the exact opposite of me in that way. They're happy to do the 9 to 5. And they said to me, you can't leave. You just bought a new car. And I went, you think I'm staying in this country for a car? You've got to be kidding me. But they didn't understand. Like, to them, they were saying, yes, why not? Of course, you just bought a new car. So it's a very different mentality. So I said, I don't care about the car, sold that, lost a lot of money on it. But to me, I knew that I was going to be more fulfilled in life without those materialistic things. So that's how I got to Europe. And I was doing marketing already. I sold my business one of my main businesses in Australia, and moved and made my life what I wanted it to be. And what I want it to be is something where I get to travel when I want to. A few weeks ago, I was in Paris for a week. I was working while there. Everyone said, but if you're working and holidaying, is it really a holiday? To me, yes, it is. It is my form of a holiday. I get to do both things that I love to do.
So when you did that transition from Australia to Europe, were there any obstacles that you faced? And if so, how did you overcome them?
You know, I think there were obstacles, but I was so excited about going that I didn't have that feeling. My partner that I was with at the time that kickstarted me to make that move, I did say to him straight up, I said, I've been wanting to do this for years. I'd only known him for a few days, but I said, I'm coming. If it doesn't work out, I'm staying in Europe anyway. You're not going to be the one that, makes or breaks my decision. And I was staying anyway. So he found it, he was always saying it was amazing that I'd never had those down points. There was a lot of obstacles, trying to organize in Spain. You've got to try to get your medical records, but you have to have a bank account, but you have to have a tax number, but you have to have a bank account to get your tax number, but you have to have a bank account. It was just this circle, and we were like, this is ridiculous. I couldn't get anything because I needed to have something first. So yeah, there are obstacles along the way, but when you look at the bigger picture, it's worth it. It really is worth it.
Absolutely. So we're taught, a lot of people are saying, okay, that is what I want to do. I want to travel and I want to have my business. What tips can you provide for managing the business and traveling?
I think the number one thing is, and this comes back to not just traveling, this is for every single business, what I see where businesses go wrong is not having a proper strategy in place. So as soon as you have a strategy in place, everything else falls into place. And I see this all the time when I do my coaching, or if I just talk. I was on this cruise for the 2 weeks, and I actually was running, when you said before, my international speaking, I was actually doing a very international speaking gig. I was actually talking in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean to the actual group. So that was very international. And everyone was coming up to me afterwards asking me, can you help me? Can you help me? Can you, give me advice? And every single one of them had the same issue where they didn't have a proper strategy in place. They had a dream. They had this, idealism of what they wanted from their life, but they didn't have a strategy on how to get there. And the thing is, no other person will have the same strategy as you. You need to have your own. It only needs to be simple. But as an example where people go wrong, they come to me and they say, so I'm doing a little bit on Facebook, a little bit on Twitter, a little bit on Instagram, but they're spreading themselves so thin that they don't have an actual way forward where people are hearing their voice in full. So I say, choose a couple of things and do them well. So when it comes to traveling and working, choose a couple of things. Don't overwhelm yourself. If it means that you're only going to stick to Instagram because you don't have time and you want to travel the world, then great. Instagram's actually perfect because taking photos while you travel and using Instagram is really good. I was actually talking to a client last night, a coaching client. She wants to take 2 weeks holiday. She's just setting up her social media for her new business. And I said, well, if that's the case, use Instagram as your tool as you move forward. We can always add Facebook later on down the track, but this actually integrates perfectly. Taking photos of your trip is part of what your business brand wants to be anyway, so don't worry about Facebook at the moment. Don't let that be a concern. I think we try to do too many things at the same time, thinking we have to cover everything because we look at all these big businesses, but we are small businesses. We don't need to be like Coca-Cola or, McDonald's. We just need to be true to ourselves and do what works for us and make sure that what we're doing is putting our personality forward, our brand forward properly.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned, we're talking about strategy, and what came to mind was an exit strategy. And from when you sold your businesses in Australia, did you have a strategy, or was it something where you just, it seemed like you decided, or is that part of what you instruct people to do, is have an exit strategy of some sort?
Look, many of the people that I work with, my actual personal clients, are creating lifestyle businesses. So
Gotcha.
It's not about an exit strategy because we're trying to develop something that in 5 years from now that they can run as much on autopilot as possible. So exit strategies are not really relevant in that way. However, if you are creating a business where you do see that you want to sell it in the future, definitely you need to have an exit strategy. It is really, really important because at that last minute, it can become confusing and it can become difficult. The business, the main business I sold, which I had to sell because it was an Australian business, it was one that it was actually, I had 12 staff, but they were all contractors. So it was easier. Now, if they were my real staff members, it might have been a different story. But because they were contractors, it did make it a lot easier. So it also depends on the type of business you're running.
Right, right. And you saying that reminded me of something. You're right. Like you said, the lifestyle business. What happens when you come to the point where you find that success that you weren't expecting and that shakes your lifestyle up? Any advice on how to handle success?
Delegate. Delegate. If you're in that situation where suddenly you decided that you just wanted to work 5 hours a week and you're plodding along and you're quite happy, and then suddenly you might get, a big PR campaign and all of a sudden you get an influx of business, delegate. And delegation is really important from the start of your business. For me, I know how hard it is for me. I'm one of those people, I want to do everything. I want to have control of everything. So I know that feeling, but I also know it's really important. And a few months ago, 6 months ago, I put in place a social media manager. So I had a team, but I was managing my team and I had people at different levels, but I just decided, you know what, I just need to give this role away to someone else altogether. And I no longer have anything to do with it. All I run now is my e-commerce Backstage Pass group. So that's my personal group that it's my community, and I run that on my own. But everything else, my manager looks after. I don't want to know about it. If anything goes wrong, she has to deal with it. If she can't, then she can come to me. But that actually lifted so much off my shoulders. And I could have kept doing what I was doing for a few more months and still being able to somehow fit it in. But the amount of time I've now got to deal with things that I'm really good at, it's amazing. Or the things I love to do. Rather than, one of my guys saying, I've wanted to post this on Facebook at 3 p.m. or should I do it at 5 p.m.? I don't care. Get someone else to deal with it. And a lot of the things, if something's a repetitive task, outsource it. Give it to someone else to do.
Absolutely. So I want to flip to e-commerce specifically. And so what I like to do on this show is when I have a guest, talk about them and ask them to provide some tips in their specific area of expertise. And you've already provided so many in the area of just business. But for e-commerce specifically, and for those just entering the space, so they're listening to this and they might have just started their e-commerce store or thinking about it. What are a couple marketing strategies that they should be implementing right from the very start?
An email list. Having an email list and nurturing your email list is so important, whether it's the initial emails before someone buys or the ones after they actually purchase. That is so important that people don't do properly. And having a proper opt-in, because too many people have joined my email list. That's not going to work. You need to have something that's more compelling than that. It might be download this 25% off voucher that's only valid for the next 24 hours. Don't give it a 1 year time frame. Make sure it's a really short time frame. Or even just share this to get a discount. And then there are share systems where they still have to give you their email address as well. So there's a few things like that you can do.
And in terms of nurturing your list, how often is too often, and what kind of, sometimes people struggle and say, well, what can I send out to the people on my list?
Okay, so I always recommend the 80-20 rule, 80% helping and 20% sales. So the way I see it is, if someone chose to join your list, don't be embarrassed to email them, because a lot of people think, I might email them too much. Well, if that's too much for that person, then they shouldn't be on your list anyway. People leaving your list is actually a good thing. It's not an offensive thing. How many times do we all leave people's lists that we're not saying we hate you? It's not relevant anymore. So if you give 80% help and then give 20% of sales pitches, you're going to go a lot further, and you're going to have people wanting to open your email. So that would be the first thing. So whether that's once a week, twice a week, once a month, the option is really up to you. But at least once a week, I would say.
Awesome. Thank you. And finally, so this one is pitfalls or things that you see new e-commerce business owners doing. What should they be prepared for? Like, basically, don't do this. What are those things that would fall under that list?
Okay, the number one that I have always thought, and we spoke about it a lot when I was on this cruise as well with other marketing people, is the number one thing that people do wrong in business is that they have this great idea, they have this great product, and they don't have a marketing budget. And that is, I can guarantee you that is the number one thing that we all see. So they come along and they say, oh, yes, I've got this thing I want to sell. I want to build a website. And then we say, okay, so how are you going to promote it? I have a website. And that's it. You're better off, say, for instance, if you're with e-commerce, if you're selling online, go and set up a Shopify store, which is probably $20 a month. There's a few different packages. Spend the $20 a month. Don't do anything like getting it all high level and beautiful at the moment. Spend that money on your marketing, because if you don't have people coming to your store, if you don't have the traffic, then you're never going to sell anything anyway, and your beautiful website has gone to waste. I had this with a client a few months ago. She sells organic products, and she put so much work into her website. When I met her, she'd already been getting her website built. They charged her over $8,000. And by the time she came to me, she said, I've got no money left to market. And I said, but now you've got this beautiful website. I said, by the time you get the money together, the website's going to be out of date. And you'll want a new website because it won't be trendy anymore, because it's such a beautiful, trendy website. It's going to go out of fashion so quickly. So you need to have money for marketing. That's the thing. Money or time. So if you don't have the money for marketing, you better get in there and spend every second of your time learning how to do it. But it's not easy. There's certain things that people shouldn't be doing on their own. So having a budget is really important. That maybe you do some of it, but you allocate some of it off to other people to take care of for you.
Absolutely. Awesome. I have one final question, and it's just to leave the listeners with some advice, whether it be related to starting their own business or e-commerce. Do you have any final words of wisdom that you would like to share with them, something that they can take with them and think about for the rest of the day?
Okay. You've put me on the spot, but
I did. I'm sorry.
That's totally okay. The first thing that I would recommend is knowing your audience inside out, knowing exactly who you're selling to inside out, knowing down to what brands they like, because that actually says a lot about how you can speak to them. So you want to know what they like to do. You want to know how many kids they have, because all of these things people don't realize how important it is, because you should be speaking to one person. So if you're selling one particular product, you want to speak to that person. If your e-commerce store is selling all different products, then each product needs to speak to different people. So you don't want to be general, because you think about yourself personally. If you're reading something and it just says something like, if you're a man or a woman and you want to start a business, maybe you want to do a big business or a small business, or maybe you want to, and you're reading it going, oh yeah. But if you read something and it's very, very targeted, are you a female and you're 36 and you want to run a business so you can travel, I'll be going, yes, that's me.
Right.
Yeah? So you want to target everything specifically to that one person. And it sounds very daunting, because people are very scared of cutting out other people. They think, if I do that, I'm going to lose all the other people. But it's not true. What happens is people that resonate to that will actually still see themselves in that. A perfect example is Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola always puts beautiful 20-something-year-old girls and guys with amazing bodies dancing on the beach drinking Coca-Cola. That doesn't stop the 50-year-old fat man drinking a Coca-Cola and wanting Coca-Cola, does it? He still wants it, because he's looking at that ad saying, hey, I want to be like that. Yeah? They're not cutting out those people. So you have to look at it and say, okay, let's target right down to that one particular person, like Coca-Cola targeting 25-year-old hot girls and guys, but you're still going to have other people thinking, I want to be that person, or one day I'll be that person, or I'm aiming to be that person. Yeah? So targeting is very, very important.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure I could come up with a bazillion questions more, but for the sake of time, I wanted to thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast. And before we close out, please tell everybody where they can find you on the web and connect with you.
Wonderful. Well, for e-commerce store owners, I do have a free download, which is at carolinebalinska.com/success. And if you go there, you can just download a checklist at 7 Secrets to E-commerce Success. I've got a few other things there on my website, or I've also got my Facebook page, which is facebook.Caroline Balinska brand. And you can find me there. And people can ask me questions. I love hearing from people. So if anyone wants to get in touch, I'm happy to hear from anyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being a guest. This was a wonderful chat, and you provided so many great resources and information. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Darlene. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for being a guest on the podcast. If you want to learn more about Caroline and get the show notes to this episode, head on over to dvpodcasts/inspired. And if you'd like to get in touch with me or join in on the conversation, head on over to Facebook, facebook.com/DarleneVictoriaWork. Well, that's it for this week, everybody. Have an enjoyable rest of the month, and we will be back again next time. Until then, this is Darlene Victoria, signing out.